There is a maid working in this huge mansion. She was a former high-class noble lady, but her family have fallen under the hands of the main character. So, she was now working as the main character's personal maid. The main character is a man of culture, and it was obvious that he wanted the special VIP service. Then the main character wanted the cultured treatment, and he requested her not to unequip her clothes, because he have a unique kind of cultural taste. The main character commanded her to flex her triangle-colored white sacred relic, and he made her look at her reflection on the mirror. The maid is not a fan of the cultural activities. However, she was a personal maid, and she must obey her master. Meanwhile, the main character got his hands were traveling around various planets, and it was handling the solar system with care. The maid asked the main character if he was contented, but the main character got the unlimited time package. Then he gave her a surprise helping hand. The main character freed her melons from their container, and he was carrying her assets to liberty. Eventually, the main character's attack was taking effect on her, and she became a crystal clear mineral water dispenser. Then the main character decided to reward her for solving the global water crisis. The main character unleashed his legendary kraken, and he wanted her to request the power of his majestic creature. Since she was a maid, she followed the order of her master, and she requested for the legendary power. Then the main character tear apart the sacred seal of purity, and he was now giving her the clapping exercise. The maid is experiencing the primary damage effect, but the main character is a skilled clapper, and it was making her release the crystal clear mineral water. She wanted to cancel the cultural treatment, but she can't voice out her complaints that she don't want the main character to mark her private property. The main character noticed that she was doing her best, despite receiving the primary damage effect. Therefore, he decided that he will give her the first reward from her master. Then the main character gave her a creamy milkshake, and he commended her for completing her first task of her exclusive personal maid training session. One day, the main character went home from work. As usual, he only asked his personal maid to give him some assistance. Then the main character brought her to his room, and he tied her hands. Then he asked her to start cleaning. However, she cannot do her job with her hands tied. Professional maids can still clean in this kind of condition. So, the main character will teach her a cleaning technique without using her hands. Then the main character gave her a detailed instruction, and she was now following his command. The maid felt that her credit score was dropping, but she have no choice but to do the gulp gulp 3000 cleaning technique. Her brain was saying that she was not interested with this kind of culture, but her sacred sanctuary was having a water leakage. Then the main character feed her with a fresh organic milkshake, and she was showing gratitude by finishing every single drop. After that, the main character uninstalled her underground equipment, and he ordered her to roleplay as the driver, and he will be the mode of transportation. Then she was now riding on the Iron Pegasus. The maid was experiencing a lot of difficulty, because her weakness was getting attacked. Eventually, the maid managed to reach her peak of success. The main character congratulated her for her personal achievement, so he will now give her a reward. Then the main character gave her the Rod of Destruction, and she wanted the main character to calm down. However, the main character was not listening to her request, and he continued giving her the Rod of Destruction. In addition, the main character combo his attack by handling the mountain range. The maid was generating her original soundtrack, and her brain was not braining anymore from too much thrilling sensation. The main character level up his Rod of Destruction by handling her cake factory. So, her eyes was turned into hearts. Then the main character reached his limit, and he gave her the explosive creamy milkshake. The maid also reached her peak of success multiple times, so the main character considers her as a full-fledged personal maid. The next day, while the maid was cleaning, the main character approached her, because he wanted some cultural bonding moments with her. Then they went to the alley, and the redhead maid have no idea that something fishy was going on behind the scene. Then the personal maid got her assets getting handled with care. In addition, the main character was also giving her a helping hand. The maid was reducing her reactions, because she was not an attention seeker. Then the main character discovered that she have a water leakage in her underground drainage system. The maid is now close to reaching her enlightenment stage, so the main character used the hands of rapid acceleration. Then the maid experienced her peak of success. Her sensitivity setting was very high today, so she think an overnight rest will be enough to return to her default settings. However, the next day, the main character keeps on giving her the Rod of Destruction. Then she realized that there were many maids in the mansion, but she was the only one who always gets the master's total obliteration, and every day the main character gives her a hard mission. In addition, her face always gets a massive explosion, so she was worried that her mental health will experience devastation. In the next scenario, the personal maid and the redhead maid were cleaning the main character's office. The redhead maid was very optimistic with a joyful personality. However, the personal maid was having her internal monologue. Suddenly, the main character entered the scenario. Then he commanded his personal maid to put her hands on the table for cultural purposes. The personal maid don't want the redhead maid to get involved in cultural activities. So, she followed the main character's order. Then the main character unleashed the mountain range of the personal maid, so the redhead maid was surprised with that sudden exposed scenery. This will be a 1 versus 1 battle, so the main character asked the redhead maid to leave and clean his bedroom. The redhead maid leave the scenario, and the main character gave his personal maid the rod of destruction, and she was creating her own musical orchestra. Therefore, the main character was happy for her cultural improvement. Then the main character keeps on hitting her lucky 7 jackpot. Her weakness was identified, so the main character gave her a 1000 RPM clapping exercise. Then the main character completed his attack by finishing her with a creamy explosion. The next day, the redhead maid approached the personal maid, because she was worried about the events yesterday. The personal maid told her not to worry, so the redhead maid volunteered to help if she needed help. Then suddenly, the main character teleported in the scenario, and he requested his personal maid to do something for him. The redhead maid wanted to confront the main character about yesterday, but the personal maid stopped her from questioning the hobbies of a man of culture. Then the personal maid told the redhead maid to leave this room. They skipped their regular bonding time last night, so the main character was curious about her condition. The maid was blushing, and the main character suddenly performed a helping hand. Then the maid immediately retreats, because the main character found out that she was hoarding a lot of crystal clear mineral water. So, the main character was glad for her level up. Then he started the melon feeding frenzy program, and she was instantly weakened by that, because she was evolving into a woman of culture. The main character was thirsty, so he decided to drink the mineral water straight from the underground cave. Then he asked if she wanted the main event, and she gave him the go signal. The main character gave her the clapping exercise, and he was doing the gentleman mode version. In addition, the main character was doing a stop motion, because he wanted her to crave for his legendary powers. Eventually, the maid was close to reaching her finish line, but the main character cancelled her from achieving success. Therefore, the maid was suffering from the edge of glory. Suddenly, the redhead maid interrupted the cultural event. Then the main character told her that he was busy, so she can't enter right now. After that unnecessary distraction, the main character started giving his personal maid the rod of destruction. Then the main character wanted her not to hold back her true desires. He knows that she have already acquired the characteristics of a woman of culture. However, she was still not accepting that title. That's the end of this cultural anime recap. Moral lesson of the story: always be careful if your boss is a man of culture. Anyways, here is your noble sauce, and make sure that it's limited to the culturally matured people only, and thank you for watching.